Hello everyone, welcome to How to Build a Brand Online at this year's Off the Records. My name's Callum Johnson from AIM, the Association of Independent Music. We're delighted to be a partner of this year's Off the Record event. Every year the conference does an amazing job to bring together the next generation of music makers and forward-thinking professionals in Scotland to create super special moments. Its core mission aligns perfectly with our work at AIM, providing a gateway to success in the music industry through knowledge, business building skills, community and contacts, and helping to level the playing field for Scotland's newest industry leaders. And I'm super excited to be joined by some amazing experts today from artists, marketing managers, business owners, and we'll be covering various tips and looking at some practical takeaways on how to build a brand online. So we're going to start with a quick 30-second challenge. I'm going to invite each of my fantastic panelists to quickly introduce themselves and summarize what they do. So shall we start with Charlotte?
Hi, I'm Charlotte McKelvie. I'm the marketing manager for SWG3 in Glasgow, which is a music venue, an arts venue as well.
Amazing. Kathryn?
Hi, so I work mostly in the live sector and I run Queens of Noise events, which is an annual female-centric music conference. I also run Femme Fatale, which is an art exhibition, Moldy Soul Promotions, and recently Callum Creative, so that's like freelance work and design stuff.
Amazing. Alex?
Yeah, I'm Alex Matthews. I run Vintage Society Music, which is a Scottish music site, and we kind of specialise in filmed interviews, film sessions, and we also did live shows and stuff like that as well.
Amazing. And it looks like we're going to have to wait for the introduction of none other than Sega Bodega whenever he returns. So I think we're just going to kick things off by looking at social media, building a brand online. I think we all are very familiar with social media. And the first question that I have is, they're all free services, but what platforms work best for you to showcase your brand identity? Alex, do you want to kick this off with Vintage Society?
Yeah, I'd probably say Instagram, to be honest, out of all the kind of social media platforms, just because we're quite a visual-based thing, when it comes to all our film stuff and things like that. It's good for us to be able to give people a taster of what they can expect when they head over to our YouTube or website. And Instagram really allows us to do that just kind of by being this thing that's kind of geared towards images and that sort of thing.
So you use Instagram mainly to upload images and sort of, is it snippets of the interviews as well, or how do you sort of get that message across?
Yeah, so snippets of the interviews and the sessions and stuff as well, and then sometimes a wee bit after we'll stick them up on Instagram TV just so that they're kind of more accessible. It's just a really good platform to get stuff out there, and it's kind of where we have our biggest following, which I think kind of speaks to the fact that it works really well for us.
Okay, great. And I'm going to quickly backtrack to a quick 30-second interview from Sega now his returns.
Sorry, I'm Salvador Sega Bodega, and I produce music and I run a label, and yeah, that's it.
Incredible. And I think I'll flip this question on you. We were just saying social media platforms can massively help to increase brand awareness and engage with fans. Is there a certain platform that you find most useful to engage your fans with or get across your brand identity?
Instagram for me, because I think people like to see the person that they're a fan of or interested in following, and just seeing them just do normal stuff. Even I'll do it to older artists, and I'll just go and look up interviews with them just because I want to see them talk. I just want to see them doing stuff. It's interesting to see the normal person behind the thing that you've been following. So Instagram, because of it's so visual, I think is really helpful for that.
Yeah, and I think your profile speaks volume of that as well. And I think you do it incredibly well. And again, I saw various different types of content that you are uploading, whether it's you did a series of collaborations for the AIM Fund, which was incredible. But then tons of other stuff which is super visual. And Charlotte, with SWG3, again the same question. Is there anything that strikes you? Is it Instagram again? We're seeing a running theme here.
Yeah, it's definitely Instagram, but we have on sales and announcements for shows. So I guess Facebook's really useful and important for that. But there's so much going on at the venue that we just like to keep it simple, I guess. So yeah, just Instagram and Facebook and Twitter as well.
So really using them for different things, for directing fans or potential people coming to the venue to buy tickets on Facebook, but promoting it mainly via Instagram.
Yeah, like Instagram stories, you can swipe up to ticket links and stuff. It just makes it easier.
Yeah, sure. Which sort of leads me on, we're talking about getting your brand identity across on social media, but how do you know when you found your brand identity? Is it ever finished? How do you know when you've conquered it? Kathryn, I think you'll be a good place to start.
Yeah, so I don't know if you can necessarily finish your brand identity. I don't know if it's ever finished. It's always kind of a work in progress. It has to grow and evolve with you. It's not ever set in stone. It can look finished, but on the inside you're still working away at it all the time, because if it's not growing with you, then it's not accurate and it's not authentic enough. I don't know if that really answers your question.
Yeah, 100%. So how do you find that evolves with time? If it's never finished, how do you keep up with engaging with fans, or do the fans and do potential or does a potential audience play into that?
Yeah, definitely. So it depends on, say for example, you have a particular audience in mind that you want to target. If you've started already and then you find that actually you're reaching a different audience than you planned, you kind of have to change and evolve and then learn how to target who you're actually reaching and who's actually interested, rather than who you necessarily thought would be interested.
So sort of evolving with the times. And I guess when we're talking about a brand, a brand is often consistent but does change with the times. So do you have any sort of tips? Does anyone on the panel have any tips to sort of maintain your brand and maintain your brand identity, but keep evolving with the times, and especially in the times where we are in right now?
I think it's different for each one of us, because like some of us are going from like for me, it's like I'm kind of showing myself, whereas if it's a brand, like a company, I guess it's you represent the company, and you kind of want to have to make the company feel like it's has a personality. But I think just like getting my manager always does this thing where he's like, tell me your favorite song from the album, or It's like, and I kind of hate that, because it seems so obvious to like, it's like reaching out in the most obvious way, but at the same time, like it really works, like getting people to like asking people questions about what they want, so that they can feel like they're somehow involved in the process of something, even though they're not. And things already been made up in my head, but it's just they kind of feel like they're a part of something. And I feel like Charlie XCX did a really good job of that with her last album, where she got like all the fans to like submit art for it, and she didn't end up really doing that, but everyone felt like they were a part of it, and it kind of creates this moment. And I think having like moments, creating a moment for whatever the thing that you're doing, is how to like keep things going, rather than just like random. And I'm only speaking for myself, but like having not just doing like anything at any random time. It has to feel like, oh, that was like an era, even if it was like 2 weeks. It feels like I think people seem to react well to that.
And would you say that changes from when you're doing it from the artist's perspective, and then when you're running it from the label?
Well, with the label, it's kind of like we leave each person to do their own moments, and we kind of let. I'm not really. It's kind of it's a weird label, because it's not like how a label is normally run. Like we put music out, but we don't have like a proper infrastructure. So we just kind of we're kind of playing it by ear. So I can't really tell if that applies the same for the label now.
So I guess, taking that sort of ethos, and when we're looking at venues, so Charlotte, are you sort of influenced by the people that come to your events? Do they sort of influence the identity that SWG3 has?
Yeah, for sure. But there's such a big like a different range of audiences at SWG3. I think like it's always different. So for our identity, we try and keep it like as simple as possible, just to like get the different messages out. Because it could be like a club night and then a gig and an arts event on in the same evening, kind of thing. So yeah, I guess it's quite difficult to like separate it. So we try and be as simple as possible with our branding.
Brilliant. Sort of, you know, everyone's on social media. It can be a very powerful tool, and it can be a very powerful tool for the mind. You know, there's a lot of pressure to be on there. What does a successful campaign look like? You know, what is it important to have a huge following on there? Or is it more important to you guys to have a sort of smaller, more engaged following? Or is it all about sort of looking at those numbers on socials and having that perception that there's a lot of people following you?
Well, the perception of people following you is like is easy. You can do that pretty easily. But that you can also see when it's like, I know, like you can see people who like buy followers, or they like, I can't fully remember what the question was, but like, remind me again what you said. So
saying that there's a lot of pressure to be active on social media, and everyone's using it. We're all talking about how we use social media to sort of promote ourselves or our brands. But what does actual success look like? You know, is it during a campaign where you're getting people to
I think success seems to kind of, when things seem to really land is when people are buying tickets. Like people are like coming to shows and they want to like, they want the physical things. They want like, they're buying the vinyl, they're all those things. Like that's when I can really feel like this has connected.
When you can see tangible outcomes.
When you can see tangible outcomes, and they're taking it out, and it's not just on their phone, and it's they want it in their house, and they want to come to a show. That to me feels like a fan.
Yeah. And I guess, Alex, you know, from the point of view of running a blog and a podcast and running the YouTube channel, to you, the same question, you know, what does success look like to you? You know, I'm sure there's lots of people tuning in today looking to start blogs. They might already have blogs. How can they measure success?
I mean, I think it comes down to how many people are actually looking at the content you're putting out, less so than social media, whether it be, you know, a YouTube video or the amount of listens you've got on a podcast. That's the kind of thing I look to for success. And social media can be used, you know, as a tool to get people through to that. So I guess, yeah, it comes down to the numbers on the actual piece of content rather on the social media itself.
And so again, I think for you as well, I think what you're doing is really exciting. You've got so many different types of bands coming in. Do you, you know, when you're talking to the bands and talking about their successes, is it often that they're with the same sort of mindset as Sega, where it's, I just want people to come down to the shows, I want people to buy my merch? Or is it, you know, we're heavy on socials, we are active on socials, we engage with our fans there? How do those sort of conversations go?
I mean, I think most people I speak to seem to kind of feel the same way, like what Sega was saying, where it's a tool to get people to actually come to the shows and a tool to kind of connect with people and to kind of reach that place where you can connect with them in person or in a more intimate way, as opposed to, because social media can be a little bit clinical. So it's like what he was saying about, you know, sticking out questions and stuff. It seems to be about trying to establish a connection with people and interact with their fans directly, which seems to be quite exciting for us.
So, you know, again, we're talking about sort of people buying tickets. Charlotte, I'm sure you're hurting a lot right now with the venue space. How is that for you? You know, what does success look like at the moment? That must have shifted.
Yeah, I think it's just everything's on pause at the minute. We're just looking forward, like, to the future for like what happens afterwards, because there's not like literally nothing happening at the minute. But yeah, most of our shows have just been rescheduled for next year, so we've just been sort of working on that. But yeah.
And have you been keeping sort of active on socials? Have you been keeping engaging content going? And
yeah, we've mainly just been sharing campaigns by the NTIA and like, yeah, because there's a lack of government support at the minute. So we're just trying to raise awareness that the sector needs more support. And then during the first lockdown, we had a big campaign for making PPE with this a company called Vise Up. So yeah, it's just doing different kinds of stuff like that.
Cool. So that sort of constant innovation, and Kathryn, I think again, everything that you do with the festivals and the conferences that you do, and also in the sort of graphic design space, do you see that sort of playing a part into winding into each different conference? And then I guess the question there is, how do you differentiate the different brands that you are sort of building?
Yeah, that can be a struggle when you have so many projects you're running at the same time. Like if you're at uni and you have a part-time job and you have several projects running at the same time, you need to make sure that you have them completely separate in your mind and on paper, because people can get confused really easily, especially your friends. If you're like sharing more than one thing, they can look at it and be like, oh, what's that for again? So you have to, for me personally, I'm a massive fan of like scrapbooking and using like physical reminders for myself. So having like mood boards and like little books of paper and like ideas all together, just to help me like have like physical documents that show me categorically like what thing is which and what goes where, and like what fonts I use, what sizes, what colors, what inspired it. Like the whole aim behind everything is like categorized, which sounds very clinical, but it has to be organized for me, otherwise I get a bit muddled, and obviously you don't want to be muddled when you're showing people what you're doing. So
definitely not. And you know what, that leads me really nicely into my next question, which is sort of engaging with your audience, but then also looking at the different services and platforms that are out there to help you along that process. So you're talking about the planning stages or the creative stages, and just having a good old-fashioned pen and paper to help you sort of mind map that. Are there any other tools that you use that helps you along the process that you literally couldn't go a day without, or is it literally get me a pen, get me a notepad, and away you go?
I think I'm very analog in the way where I definitely prefer pen and paper. Like it's always my go-to. Like I have a million notebooks and half of them are empty just as backups, but I love Pinterest as like a start point. If you want to just like get inspiration, it's such a good place to just go and have a look. But for digital like lists and like keeping things organized, Trello is so good, because you can keep multiple lists in the same place. You can have like little checklists, you can tick things off when they're done, you can invite friends. If you're on a group project, you can have more than one person, so you can like collaborate on things together. And I think that's definitely something that I would not be able to live without, because when you have so many things going on, you need to make sure that they're all organized.
100%. Do you know what? I'm the complete reverse of that. I like all my notes on pen and paper. I can't use any of those online things. There you go. Everyone's different. Anyone else on the panel? Is there anything else that when you're building something or doing anything along the creative or the business process, is there anything that you just can't live without?
I have a whiteboard that I can like the project then goes up on, and it's like, I don't know why, that just helps, because it's always there. It's like having it on a screen means that I might not go to that screen and it's not in my peripheral. But the whiteboard is just on the wall, and it's like a constant. It's kind of like one of those things that like a motivational have a great day type of thing. But it's just, this is what you still have to do, and it's not stressful. It's stressful. There's a lot of it, but otherwise it keeps me always kind of. It doesn't make me slack.
And I guess with that as well, there's always that feeling, which I love, of just being able to cross something out or rub it off.
Yeah, that is a really good feeling. Like when you just take it away and you're like, that helps me feel better about the project bit by bit, rather than like at the end of it or something, or not at all.
Yeah, so that's sort of time management and being able to look at things and go, right, I need to do that. Bosh, that's out of the way, on to the next thing. I totally agree. That's super satisfying when you can do that.
Yeah, I know. Okay, go on.
No, after you, mate.
I just know a lot of people that kind of, that their work ethic or their workflow or just a lack of a plan is the reason that they don't get things done. And it's stupid, because that shouldn't be a reason the whole project. Like people, like you just know those people who are like, they want to do all these things and they're more than capable of it, but just like they need a manager or they need someone constant. You can't always have that. So like you kind of need systems in place to like just get it done. And I think if everyone could have those like little tips that someone else has, they would get shit, like they would have like a project that's finished. And it's such a shame to see so many people kind of suffer because they're basically their own worst enemy.
So like writing things down effectively makes you more efficient, or makes you feel like
just
you're
having a plan, understanding the best way that you as a person work.
And so I guess as well, when you're then looking at the creative process and planning out, okay, you've got this for the label, you've got this for socials, and then obviously the writing process, the producing process, do you find that you then can allocate time specifically to that? Or is it, again, a little bit more over the place? I know for one, my brain works at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I try to do a lot of things at once, which can be my own biggest enemy.
I don't know. I think I've kind of gotten into my own way of working, and it seems to work. And I can kind of juggle a bunch of things at once. It's just about like the projects are never like there's just never any really deadlines, so that you can kind of not stress too much. Deadlines are the thing that makes things quite stressful. Like a commercial job will have a deadline.
Yeah. Does anyone else find that in their roles, having a deadline makes you sort of less efficient almost?
I mean, sometimes if you have a lot of deadlines all kind of piled up at the same time, then you can get to the point where you're like, maybe I can't do my best because I'm restricted in that way. But otherwise, I'm kind of okay with deadlines as long as they're spread out enough for me to feel like I can give it my best shot.
Yeah. So I guess when to anyone watching who's building a brand or trying to find an identity for a brand, I guess having a goal, like an end goal, like I want this finished and I want to go live by January. Would you say that's useful to have? Or again, would you say that's just an added pressure, and when you've created something, that's when it's done?
No, I think that's like the bare minimum of like pressure. Like if you're stressing out because you kind of want to have it done at some point, then I think you need to like figure out why you get so stressed about things like that. I think it's really important to have those like, this is kind of a rough deadline, even though, and you can change it. It's not going to go live. It's not going to be online, but like, it's for you to be like, okay, this is when I want this done. And I think that's really helpful. I think I personally wouldn't say that causes a huge amount of stress.
Amazing. So any other platforms, I think there's with the Friend of AIM network. So my role at AIM is working with a lot of associate businesses. So any company that provides some sort of service to a rights holder business. So it ranges from law firms, accountancy firms, new tech startups, all the way through to the DSPs and different brands. And there's so many tech startups now working in different areas to help you save money, be more efficient. I can think of a couple, and especially on the sort of analytical side of things, when you're trying to understand your audience, who are your fans, who are coming to your events, who's buying your merch. Does anyone use any analytical tools? Does anyone sort of care about analytical tools, or is it sort of what you're putting out there will draw the fans?
In terms of like analytics of how certain pieces of content and stuff do?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I feel like I look at that quite a lot. Maybe not as much as I used to, but I'm always kind of checking just to see how stuff's doing, just because it's interesting to see what people are into and what people seem to be resonating with.
And have you found any sort of trends, especially on the stuff that you're doing? Is it mainly on the podcasting side, or is there anything in particular that you find gets fans sort of really going?
Nobody cares about the kind of written stuff. It tends to be all the video stuff, and the podcasts tend to do a lot better. Anything that's that kind of form of new media where it's spoken word as opposed to written word seems to resonate with a lot more people, or a lot more people are checking it out, at least because it's a bit more accessible.
So have you sort of found yourself then moving away from the sort of traditional blog styles, if you like, onto more these podcasts and the interview style?
Yeah, I think in January we're kind of going to be leaving that behind for good and kind of moving that into an archive section on the site and just doing, I mean, we used to just do the film stuff, but kind of going back to just doing the film stuff and podcasts, just because I enjoy doing it more, and also it's what resonates with people more, it seems to be.
Yeah. And I think you've struck a chord there as well, because I think, you know, as soon as you start investing more time in something you enjoy, the more you're going to put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. And I guess as well, you know, times are very tough. And I think for you, especially where you have bands coming in, doing these interviews, putting on these podcasts, you know, how have you adapted in that to sort of continue going with Vintage Society?
Well, we started doing podcasts via Zoom, which I was kind of very hesitant and against at the start of lockdown. And then when it kind of emerged that this wasn't going to be going away by the end of the year and it was going to be here for a while, it was that kind of adapt or die thing. But then since I've done that, it's been really liberating because I can now speak to anyone, anywhere in the world. And it means the podcast we're probably, you know, getting on the best guests we've ever had. And it seems to be growing and kind of getting a bit more traction than it was, purely just because I now have access to speak to people in Australia and America, just wherever. There's no real limit to it, as opposed to before you would have had to wait for them to be coming into town.
And so I guess then you've sort of tapped into something quite special there, which is, you know, looking at a global audience, and that sort of stemmed out of, you know, a complete pandemic, which you might not have done before. So that sort of innovation that you set yourself there with something that you're actually quite reluctant to, you found tangible outcomes of a global audience. Does this mean you sort of might evolve the brand and look at sort of more bands internationally or even sort of regionally in the UK for starters, or are you just going to keep focusing on the bread and butter?
Yeah, I think that globally, definitely we'll be looking at more artists. I think you get to a point where, you know, when I'm speaking to various bands all the time and interviewing them, if all the bands come from the same area, it starts to limit you a bit because there's always going to be parallels and similarities in terms of kind of where they sit. Whereas if you're speaking to people from all over the world, there's so much more stuff you can ask them. I mean, particularly on the podcast and stuff, I tend to find myself speaking about the kind of culture of where the people are from quite a lot, just because it's interesting to me and I'm kind of unfamiliar with it often.
Brilliant. Anyone else on that? You know, anyone else finding that using social media allows you to engage with an audience that you don't think you might have had before? Or does socials impact the ability to engage with fans overseas? And to what capacity?
With like Ads Manager, you can definitely target specific people based on like what's good for us, because if someone like clicks attending on an event on Facebook, then we can target our posts towards them. So yeah, I guess. So
Facebook Ad Manager.
Facebook Ads Manager is probably the most useful for us, yeah.
And obviously that's free.
That is free unless you want to, creating an ad, obviously you have to pay for.
Creating an ad where you then put advertising spend behind an advert, but looking at the analytical tools and the behind that from posts, you can access for free. And then obviously, you know, I guess that brings on quite an interesting point around marketing spend. So you built a brand, you put it out on your social media, you're starting to get people engaging, but you're not quite getting enough engagement, so you'd be tempted to put some spend behind it. Can anyone, you know, give any examples or any sort of tangible outcomes that you found by putting, whether it's £5 on a post or £10 on a post? Have you found that that's been a useful outcome?
I've never really seen it. Like I have a pretty much a hate relationship with Facebook, because it just seems to be like X amount of people will follow you, and then maybe 100 people will see the post. And I never understood and everyone has the same problem. And I've noticed that whenever I do paid posts on Facebook years ago, after that, it would just kill all my posts. My algorithm would be fucked because I'm not paying for the post anymore. So I've been really wary of doing that.
So, you know, again, I think a lot of people do get frustrated with it, especially if you don't know how to navigate Ads Manager, which can be quite a minefield if you've never used it before. There are a lot of tools as well out there that can help navigate that. Again, through the Friend of AIM network, there's tons of these tools. But if you're sort of hesitant about putting a $5 or a $10 on a post, how would you allocate that spend otherwise? If you've set aside, right, I've got £50 for a marketing budget, how would you better spend that cash?
Me?
To anyone on the panel?
I don't know. I would probably just press, because press is essentially paid posts. Like a press agency to do all the mail out to like the blogs and all that. that's kind of the same. You get the same result. You just get other people posting it for you. So press is probably important.
Does anyone else find that press is an incredibly crucial role to the business?
Yeah, I think it's definitely valuable to connect with others and help them find out what you're doing and tell them what you're doing, rather than just hope that somebody will latch onto what you're doing because you've posted it online. Like, it's much easier to connect with people if you've sat down and either written it out for somebody to post elsewhere or like actually talk to them. It's like with Alex, like he gets such detailed content because it's like spoken and you're engaged and you're having an actual conversation, rather than like a written post that might be 50 words long that 10 people might look at.
I guess as well, you know, when you're then sort of, right, okay, I want to go to press. How do I do that? Where do I go? Especially when we're talking about brands, you know, I think there's certain press which will be more relevant to certain artists, certain brands, certain businesses, certain venues. Does anyone have any tips of how you can sort of navigate that and cut through the noise to find the right press partners or the right sort of outlets that you want to aim towards?
I think ask people around you that are similar, doing similar things. And don't be afraid to like ask, oh, well, you've been in this for a bit longer than I have, and this is how I was wondering how you do it. And I don't think anyone should ever be stingy about sharing that information, because they didn't know at one point. So I would always ask people that you consider to be, you know, people that you look up to, and don't like annoy them, and obviously be respectful of like certain things, but like basic things like press shouldn't be something that like people like are very precious over.
I think as well, you know, you've said something very important there, which is ask questions. And I think as well, when you're starting anything or trying to build anything, as you say, there's always going to be people around you that have done it before or have more experience. So, you know, one of my first rules is always just don't be shy. Don't ask questions. You know, don't be shy to ask questions, rather. Charlotte, as well, with the venue, do you find that you find more like a certain type of press engaging with the events, or does it again depend on the type of event you're putting on?
We have a press team who mainly like send that information to, I guess, similar like newspapers and stuff that pick it up. But yeah, I don't know how to answer that one. I guess it's just yeah, sorry.
No worries. No, I think that actually, Alex, you know, I think a lot of bands will probably go, right, I want to get to Vintage Society. That could be a good outlet for me. Is there a sort of style that you have, or a sort of style of bands that you find normally are the most engaging?
You mean in terms of who I want to feature on the site?
Yeah.
No, not particularly. I mean, we try and cover a range of stuff. I mean, recently on the podcast, we've kind of been having a few more electronic artists and stuff on. Yeah, just since I've had, kind of like I was saying, since I've had the opportunity to kind of connect with people all over the world, it's definitely opened me up to being happy to have anyone featured that I find interesting. I wouldn't say there's anything I look for in particular. It's just whether I enjoy it or not, really, to be honest.
Yeah, amazing. I guess as well, has anyone found that you've changed anything during being in lockdown, or since March? Have you found that the bands or the types of people more excited to get involved? Are they sort of reaching out more now? Charlotte, are you finding more artists sort of saying, oh, can we book something in for next year? Are people sort of keen to it, or are you finding people are being a little bit more reserved in that?
I think they're being reserved, so I guess that they know that most of the bands that were booked for 2020 have now moved to 2021. So I think everyone's just been like patient with each other at the minute, I found.
Sure.
Yeah.
I felt like everyone was just available. The thing that I did not for AIM, but the thing that I did and then, you know, put AIM as like a charity for it was I basically did a covers project in like May or March, in the form of like FaceTime calls, and I knew that people would do it because I knew that everyone was bored inside, wanted to release stuff, but didn't want to release the project that they've been kind of working on for the last months because it would just, you can't tour anymore. So there's like, should I wait to see what's happening with this thing? But this kind of felt like a good way to take advantage of that fact that everyone was available.
And I think the project, from AIM's point of view, was incredible. It was incredibly well received by us, and as a team, we were super excited to see it. Do you find that you found yourself getting more into it as time went on, and did you then sort of get more confidence in yourself to reach out to other artists that you might not have asked otherwise?
No, they were all friends, so they were all like, no, they were all really close friends. So I kind of knew that they would have been down. And then afterwards, like a bunch of people who saw it got in touch to do more, but I didn't really want to do that straight away. But probably it kind of gave me. I think, I don't know. It's because it was covers. I'm kind of wary of just doing covers because you don't ever want to be known as like the covers person if you're making your own stuff. So I have to be kind of like particular about how in with that I went.
Yeah, and I guess that's sort of looking back at your own brand identity and going, right, this isn't for me, but how can I do it and flip it on its head? Super creative. Is there anything else that you saw people doing over the last 6 months that was particularly creative, or you were like, wow, that's genius?
Nothing genius, but like a lot of the Club Quarantine was cool. It was like a Zoom club, and they just got really amazing bookings on it. They just got really, and their Instagram is really good because it basically is like a meme page at the same time, but like a music meme page. So like people who love the night or the Zoom, or whatever it's called, will also be like, they'll get the memes. So they really figured out how to like cater to their audience, and it's really worked.
Almost that like online offline experience of the classic social media.
No, it's literally just online because there's no offline. It exists because of coronavirus.
Amazing. Has anyone else found anything particularly creative or anything that you've been like blown away by?
I don't know if blown away necessarily. It's just I think a lot of people are really struggling to figure out a way to do what they want authentically and to the best of their abilities. But things that I've really enjoyed has been the NPR at home tiny desk sessions. They've been quite cool because they're still really good quality, but obviously it's not in the usual setting. And then Fontaine's DC doing like their live stream from a prison in Ireland. That was really cool. Like it's nice to get like different settings rather than just lots of people with bad quality mics in their living rooms, because there's only so many of those you can watch until you get bored.
For sure. I think there was a certain time where you logged onto Instagram and there wasn't a minute that you couldn't scroll through stories and see anything but a live stream. So I think it's good that we sort of got past that stage and people are sort of now looking and going, okay, how can we do this in a more creative way? We're seeing a lot of artists now sort of trying to take a step back and go, how can I make this recording better? By doing a more high quality version or asking someone with a camera equipment to come and record. So I guess we've sort of looked at that evolution, building the brand, and I think we've got a couple of minutes left. So I want to ask each of you, if you were to ask or tell yourself something, if you could give yourself one piece of advice when you were starting out and you were like, how do I do this? I wish someone told me this. What is that? Shall we start with Charlotte?
I guess it's just to be like confident to I don't know, I'd like find exactly what you want to do. Like I don't know how to, because I just always knew I wanted to work in music, and because I was young, I guess I just went into marketing. But just try out different things, maybe. I don't know. It's quite broad of me, but
yeah. To be honest, I think a lot of people starting out in music. When I started in music, I started volunteering at loads of different conferences, and then you sort of find your feet, you find your ground. And I certainly found what I love to do, which was meet people and talk to people. But at the same time, a lot of people that would be their absolute worst nightmare. So I think that's actually great advice. Trying different things, finding your feet, and trying what works for you. Alex?
I guess be willing to accept the fact that you're going to have to make mistakes kind of in public view. Like if you're a songwriter, you know, when you're starting out, you can kind of write 100 bad songs, you know, and no one has to hear them. Whereas when you're running a music site, you kind of have to do it, like everything you do is kind of in show from the beginning. So like when I look back at my other interviews, I kind of cringe quite a lot, but you kind of just have to accept the fact that you're going to have to make mistakes and not be afraid to make mistakes in front of other people and kind of use that to fuel you. Like I now find that I can look at my other interviews and because I'm unsatisfied with them, it just makes me, you know, more determined to do better ones.
Is there anything, if you don't mind me asking, that you found was a massive learning curve for you? Is there anything that you did where you now think, God, I wish I didn't do that, but I'm glad I did because I learned from it?
Just doing as much as possible, probably. Like I probably did too many interviews at that stage and didn't think enough about what I wanted to do with it and where I wanted to take it and what sort of questions I wanted to ask. And had I maybe thought about that more rather than just letting it happen naturally, it would have happened quicker.
Great. So take some time out and sort of evaluate what you're about to set yourself. Look at what you're about to do.
Yeah, definitely. I would definitely say, like, because I'm quite bad for just working without really taking breaks when it comes to going through the year. Definitely say, like, maybe twice a year, take 2 or 3 weeks off and kind of just reflect on what it is you want to do with it and where you're kind of at and stuff.
Amazing. Thank you. Kathryn?
I would just say, similar to what Charlotte was talking about, like, find something that you really care about, like, something that really resonates with everything that you stand for. Because if you don't have that passion from the start, you're never going to get anywhere with it. You have to really put your whole soul right in there, because if it's not there, then it's not going to be authentic. And that's, I think, one of the most important things is you have to stick to your gut. You have to do what's right for you, no matter what that is, whether it's making posters or like playing shows, like whatever you think is right and that you want to do. You have to like put all your passion in and just jump straight into it.
I think as well, you mentioned being authentic there, and that authenticity is so important, especially when you're trying to build that brand and you're really sort of trying to get your feet there, staying authentic and yeah, finding something that you're passionate in. And last but no means least, Sega, is there anything that you would want to tell yourself when you first started?
Well, for me, it was the moment I worked within a group, like made a collective, that I felt like people really understood the world we were trying to show. Like all my favorite artists were in collectives, like Ed Banger or like Lucky Me or Number. There was a group of people, and you could see what they were all doing, and that was exciting. I'm doing the moment I did that. Not that I did that because I was avoiding it, but the moment I found the right people to do it, it all just clicked. Everyone was like, because like you kind of share the success, you kind of share everyone else's success as well. Like I share Shy Girl's success because she's so close and we're like in the same world. And it, there's other people on it, like Cuckoo Chloe or OK Lou, and when they do something great, we all feel like a family, and we're all rooting for each other, and it actually does help the strength of the brand, but not the brand, but just like the world. Just everyone slowly just gets it more and more, and I think that was really important.
Amazing. Well, listen, I think we've literally got about 30 seconds left, so I just want to say a huge thank you to the four of you, Sega, Alex, Charlotte, Kathryn. Hopefully the panel has been amazing to the people that have been tuning in. I certainly think it has been. I think there's been some amazing practical takeaways there. Buy a whiteboard, write things down, take time out, think about things, don't rush into things. And yeah, look at how you can use social media in a creative way to build your brand.